Hello, everyone. I'm Kate. I'm one of the counselors with the PAR program at Thrive, and welcome to our discussion on self talk. Self talk is, in my opinion, one of the most powerful tools um, in creating a safe and supportive environment for not only for your partner and your children, but also for yourself. Really paying attention to our thoughts is a very powerful tool to have in our kit of strategies, um, because paying attention to how we think is going to totally shape how we act towards others and towards ourselves. So, if we really want to change problematic behavior, and make things better for ourselves and for everyone else around us, we really got to change the way we think. And identifying self talk is a great sort of first step in doing that. It's a tremendous tool to use, especially in this very bizarre time that we're in, where we're probably not even aware of a lot of the thoughts that might be ruminating in our head and how they're manifesting themselves in our words and our actions and our physical body feelings. But it's something that our group found really, really helpful and that we used all the time, as well as strategies that both myself and co facilitator Arsh use in our personal lives as well. So hopefully you can find it as helpful as we do. So basically, self talk is the thoughts or the tapes, if you will, that are running in our head at all times. And the idea is that our mind is constantly sort of assessing what's going on around us, ourselves, our people, our surroundings, the situations, all that stuff. Um, the more we pay attention to our self talk, the more we can be more in control of our thoughts and thus our actions, right? So the idea being that when we're having positive thoughts about ourselves or other people or situations, our bodies respond to those thoughts as though they're real. So we're going to notice better thoughts and feelings and actions in ourselves when our thinking is positive. The opposite is true, right? And so, if we're having negative, spiraling thoughts about ourselves, about someone else that's really, really negative, our body is going to respond to that self talk and that thinking as though it's real, right? And they're going to kind of springboard off each other. So, the self talk is going to feed the feelings, which is going to feed the self talk. And then you end up with this really sort of negative spiraling staircase, right? That pulls you down to a place that could be dangerous, right? Where you could do or say something harmful to someone else, or do something that's harmful for yourself as well. So that's why it's such a critical tool. Um, but if we can catch it early on and identify when that negative self-talk starts, we can catch it and we can shift it off into a different direction, right? With ultimately a different outcome, right? Um, Catching it also allows us, it's not necessarily going to take the problem away, whatever the problem might be. But what it might do, and what it actually is very likely to do, is going to take the sharp edges off of that thinking or off of that problem. And it's going to allow us to engage in that situation in a much calmer, centered, grounded, and hopefully more positive and safe way for everybody. Okay. So basically, I mean, during this time, there could be so many thoughts that could be coming up for you. It could be thoughts that are worried, like, oh my God, what's going to happen to my job, or what's going to happen to paying this or paying that. And we start to go down to a very negative, sort of more anxious staircase, if you will, right? But it could also be towards a partner or towards children. So if we start feeling something like, oh she's doing this just on purpose, just to get me, she knows I can't go anywhere and she's doing this just to tick me off, right? That would be an example of negative self-talk. My kids are being such brats and they're just such jerks and they're not listening to anything that I say. That's another example of negative self-talk. So what happens is we start to put this very strict box around people, or around our situation, and all of a sudden we get very stuck in that, and it's very difficult the further down we go to get off that sort of runaway freight train, right? The idea of self-talk being that once we start going, oh, she's doing this just to get me, just to piss me wait, catch that negative self-talk. Picture a stop sign. And I know that seems a little bit silly, but it actually is very, very helpful visual. Picture a stop sign. Actually stop that thought. Identify it as a negative self-talk, stop, and then replace it with a better thought, right? So better could be empathic, right? She's not doing this just to get me. She's going through the motions of this situation too. And that's probably hard, right? My kids are trying to do their best. They've been pent up in the house for days, right? So it makes sense that they would be acting out. Okay. So in that case, we're replacing it with a more evidence-based thought. Okay. In the worried example that I gave of worried about the finances, stop. You know what? Everybody's in this boat right now, or at least a lot of people are. And I found myself out of other problems. I'm going to find myself out of this one. And there are places that can support me in getting out of this situation. Okay. So in all three of those cases, you can see how we've stopped it and we've replaced it with something better, something different, something more evidence-based, right? Or something calmer. Can you see how going down in that thinking is where it's going to potentially take us? And where if we stop and shift to the other side of the road, where that's going to take us, right? At the very least, it's going to be more calming and centering for us and calm down our nervous system. And sometimes that's all it takes, right? I just need to catch that negative self-talk, replace it with a better thought, and that somewhat solves that problem in that moment, right? But other times it might require a little bit more, right? But the point of self-talk is not necessarily that it's going to solve everything, but that it's going to keep us in a space where we can solve it in the best way that we can. Okay. Because we've, again, taken the sharp edges off of it so we can stay calmer, grounded, more centered. And hopefully in doing that, we free up our mind a little bit more to allow in even more better thoughts, even more realistic thoughts, right? And continue to build on that. So we're going down this more positive path. A quick example of this, a gentleman in group years and years ago, was a truck driver and used to have to deal with all kinds of ridiculous driving all day. Any of you guys that are on the road, majority of the time know what that's about. But basically he had to pent all that up. And then when he was in his own personal vehicle with his children and with his family on the weekend, all that road rage would come out. The second that somebody cut him off, the second that, he was stuck in traffic, and he would become very, very enraged. And his self-talk was so negative. All drivers are stupid. No, people are going to kill somebody, could have killed me, right? And take him into a very, very negative space. Okay, where he would be giving people the finger, he'd be cutting people off, he'd be racing around, diving in and out of traffic, he'd be swearing. And one day he was in the car with his kids, and he started doing this. And the kids said, "Well, Dad, maybe that car has an ice cream cake in their trunk, and they have to get home before it melts for the party." And it was just cute enough and ridiculous enough to knock him off that negative self-talk path, right? And put him into a completely different space. All of a sudden he started picturing this party and this trunk with this ice cream cake that's melting and this dad trying to get it home, for his kids. And it was so cute and such a great visual that from that moment on, every time he started to notice that negative self-talk happening, he caught it, he pictured that stop sign, and he thought about the ice cream cake. And it made him think about his kids, and it made him, smile, and it kept him sort of grounded in what's important. So there might still be people driving, crazily around him, and he can't control that. But what he can control is how he thinks and how he feels. And in that moment, that visual and that self-talk helped him stay centered so that he could drive as safely as possible and not get sucked in to that sort of emotional an intense situation where he was doing and saying things that he didn't want to, right? Or that were harmful to himself and to others and to his children, right? That were present in the vehicle. So, what I'd like you to do is really be mindful over the next little while of what your self talk's like. So, when you're in a situation and you're noticing that you're starting to get revved up, or even if you're in a situation you're starting to notice that you're getting pulled into thoughts of anxiety, thoughts of depression, very, very negative about yourself, this works for that too. Catch those negative thoughts. Just pause for a second and catch them. Stop sign, and then think about what is a better thought? What's a better thing I could think about right now? What is a more evidence-based thought that I could put here now? And then watch how your body has a different reaction to that thought, right? Really pay attention to that, right? One thing we do want to tell you is that trying this, I certainly hope that it's a good strategy for you. Again, the feedback that we've gotten from our group members is that once they become aware of their self-talk, they're mindful of this all the time, and they're using this strategy all the time with really great results. So I certainly hope that that is the case for you as well. But what I will say is that if you're noticing that you're using this behavior and it's not fully working for you, or you're falling back into old strategies, please, please, please don't hesitate to reach out to Thrive. We're here for you. We want to support you, and we want to support you in creating the safest and most supportive environment that you can for your partner and children right now. And so we're here for you in that goal. On that note, take care. Please pay attention to your self-talk, and I hope this was helpful for you. Bye.